Welcome to the Homeschool Lounge. My guest is Dr. Renuka Ramroop. She is a home education mom who followed the natural learning approach in the education of her children. She is also a research associate at the University of Limpopo, and that is why we're having this conversation today. Renuka, how did you obtain your doctorate degree, and have you had any of your work published?
I published papers before I had my doctorate, and the head of research at my university kept saying, "Renuka, we need to have more research done on home education. This is fascinating. The natural learning approach is really exciting. So get on with it." So so that's how I got into doing my doctorate in natural learning, and that the thesis is available online, so people can read it. And and some of the other publications I did before my doctorate was one on reading called Raising Readers, and it explored the whole idea of emergent literacy. Emergent literacy is basically that you can make your home very conducive to reading. And how do you go about that? Because literacy development does not start when you go to school or when you reach 7 and you want to read. Literacy development actually starts at birth. So that was one of the papers that I wrote. And unfortunately, that's not available on open access. But in the last year, I've been pretty busy. So I've written 3 more publications. One has been published on open access. I can actually make that available to you later on if people want to access it. And the other 2 are in the last process of being published. So by next year, there will be 2 more articles available.
And what is the focus of your current research?
At the moment, I have 2 running at the same time, both on home education. One is focused on the Soweto home educators. In the last global homeschooling exchange, I also presented the data at that conference, but the paper is still in the process. And I also decided to go on a national survey, looking at trying to get as many people to fill out a survey, a questionnaire, to try and get a very good understanding of what's happening in South Africa on a national level in terms of home education. So the questionnaire is quite comprehensive, looking at who we are, what are we doing, where do we live, what approach do we use? Do we use assessment? Do we use the natural learning approach? And the questionnaire is a mix of both quantitative and qualitative information. Quantitative meaning where I get stats to say, okay, there's so many thousand people homeschooling or so many children doing the natural education. And qualitative where I ask questions that are a little more in-depth and people can answer the question however they want to, whether they want to do it as a short answer or a long answer. But that qualitative information is also important because it gives us a more in-depth understanding of what's happening in the home education sector in South Africa.
Why is it necessary to have data specific to South Africa? Can't we just use the research from other countries?
Well, we've all been guided by research from other countries in the past. I mean, if you look at the home education research, it's the 2 dominant countries is the United States and the UK. So, I mean, and that's sort of also what spurred me on to do some research in South Africa, because I sort of got tired of reading about what's happening in the United States and the UK. And I wanted to know what was happening here, because we have a specific context. And I think we have a unique voice and we have our unique challenges. And we still are able to continue with our home educations. And I think that data, that information enriches the home education community, whether South Africa or other countries, to sort of look at what other people are doing and how can we use that information, or how can we learn from that, and how do we improve on that. So yes, I think this getting data from South Africa is very crucial, and I would love to get as much information as possible, and to get it out there. But also a lot of people like to read research because they want to know, I mean, how is this working? What how different people are implementing it at home. And there is a difference between reading a blog and reading a book and reading research. And not everybody wants to read academic research, but academic research brings a different angle in terms of how you are seeing the data and unfolding for you. Because research has a very strict protocol that it follows. It is a scientific approach. And everything you write is thoroughly checked. There's a rigor in terms of looking at how you're doing it, your data, how you're presenting it. And if you publish a paper, it is peer reviewed, at least 2 reviewers, and edited. So it is a very strict, a very disciplined procedure to present data as you get it. And often a lot of people see that data as important. It gives them more comfort to know that you have gone through a rigorous process, a rigorous scientific process to explain your data to the people, to the reader. Yeah.
So the purpose of the research is not only for academics or for politicians. As I listen to you now, I get the idea that it's also for people who are hesitant or who want to know more before they jump into it.
There's a lot of information out there, but for me, the beauty of research is that it comes with, like I said, with this whole scientific process. So it's not like someone just telling you. I mean, for example, if you have to look at all people with their blogs and Facebook and what people tell you about their journey. I mean, it's all valuable and it has changed a lot of people's lives. But there's always this element of like, but how do we know that's actually really happening? But with research, that is the element it addresses. So in the process, it addresses that element that because it is just not because of the way it's done, the procedure that it follows, the rigor that it follows. And that for some people, that makes a difference. Of course, not all people. And I think when I started my home education journey, when I decided, okay, this sounds like the way I want to do it with my kids, the first thing I did was found a whole lot of research papers, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I wanted to read everything, every angle. And after that, I made up my mind. So, so I suppose because my journey went in that way, I see that as an avenue to explore home education.
Yeah, I can see the benefit in that, especially if you have parents asking, but does it really work? Will my child learn?
Then the data you present, you try to present it as unbiased as you can. So you try to take away all the bias around the information, and then you present the information as is. Of course, you can never be completely bias free and all of that. So there's all that discussion, but you're always putting in processes to make sure that you can eliminate bias as much as possible. So that the idea is that when you get that information, you're getting the information as the person saw it, and then as they sort of deduce from that information the conclusions that they come, but drawing from all sorts of other research and theories and whatever. So it's quite it sort of rounds off information very nicely, in my opinion.
Now, in order to paint an accurate picture, how can home education families contribute to your research?
Well, it would be really, really nice if they would all fill in my questionnaire and submit it. I know some people are worried about confidentiality of information, and I really want to assure people, when it comes to research, your information is strictly confidential. I am not allowed, I'm bound by ethics in terms of my university and as a research, I'm bound by ethics to not reveal any private information to anyone. So it's it has a legal standing in terms of confidentiality. But also remember, we are governed by the personal protection Personal Information Protection Act. So all those acts and the ethics of commission of the university make sure that people who participate in research, their information, their private details are pretty much kept confidential. And in the way it's written, so for example, if I'm using a case study, so even in that case study, there's always ways in which you try to eliminate information or change information so that people's um, identity is protected.
It is quite a lengthy questionnaire. Um, and that's because you want detailed information. It's not just a survey of tick, tick, tick.
The reason why I did it is because, people get tired of surveys. You get survey fatigue. And the homeschooling community is a growing, but it's a small community. And often you get the same people who would be sort of, responding to surveys and questionnaires or whatever. And I thought with this one, I wanted to do quite a comprehensive one. So I get a sort of a holistic understanding. So I'm not doing like a mini survey here and a mini survey there, and then trying to piece the information. I wanted to get quite a holistic understanding of the data, and then from that, sort of looking at aspects of it, I will be able to have more information to support that. Or else I would sort of have a lot of bits of surveys and wouldn't be, and also I don't want to have to go back to the home education community, like at least not for the next 5 years on a survey. So I'm trying to do a good job of it right now.
Yeah, rather not bug us every year.
Yeah. Now I understand that, I do understand that, because it does take time. Some of my questions require quite a bit of thinking and responding. And I do appreciate it when people take the time to do that. But I also understand people time is tight. But I would appreciate it, yeah, if people would respond.
Yeah, I would also encourage people to complete the questionnaire, and I would advise you to use a laptop or a computer and not the small screen, unless you're like the teenagers who can type with 2 fingers. But yeah, Renuka, thank you very much for sharing this and for doing the research, and I hope that people respond.
And thank you for having me, Anna. It's yeah, I really appreciate it.